Welcome in. It is the North Side Baseball Podcast. He is Jason Ross. I am Mitch Woodmeyer, talking anything and everything Chicago Cubs baseball. However you get the podcast, maybe it's via our website on North Side Baseball, our YouTube channel. Maybe it's via Apple Podcast, a variety of different ways. We always appreciate you tuning in and helping bump up the podcast numbers as we get things rocking and rolling. I was on a 1-week hiatus, back at it with you, Jason. Good to be back on with you. A lot has happened in the last couple of weeks with the Chicago Cubs. If you're watching via video platform, you can obviously see the topics laid out to the right. If not, I always say it's a little bit more of a surprise. That's never a bad thing. I did want to start. I thought it was somewhat appropriate to start with Cade Horton and kind of just pose the question, like, just how good has he been as we try to wrap some perspective around it. I know Monday morning, we are recording, by the way, as always, a Tuesday for a Wednesday publish. So the matchup between Matthew Boyd and Justin Verlander Tuesday night in the Bay Area has not taken place yet. But Monday morning, I saw on DraftKings and I saw it on Twitter first and then went to check to make sure it was accurate. Cade Horton now the favorite for the National League Rookie of the Year award. And I started just looking through some of the numbers because it's like you watch him every fifth, sixth day, whatever it is, Jason. And we know we're watching a young, ascending pitcher who has all the makings of just being a stud in the years to come. And then for my own perspective, I just wanted to dig into some of the numbers, and I'm seeing a guy, Jason, who of all the pitchers who have logged at least 30 innings since July 1st, nobody has a lower ERA than Cade Horton during that stretch, 1.11. In his last 7 starts, he's allowed 2 total runs, which is just insane to think about. And then
it's like 2 total runs since like the beginning of July.
Yeah, it's insane. And it includes outings against an at the time scorching hot Boston Red Sox lineup. It included an at the time red hot Milwaukee Brewer lineup and a Toronto lineup that's led by Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who were both in the lineup when Cade Horton made his start against Toronto. I saw that Horton's stretch of allowing 2 runs in a 7-start span is the fewest in Cubs history, dating back to 1901, and that was per Marquee Sports Network. And it's just been an absolutely dynamite run for the rookie for the Chicago Cubs. And, you know, not all top prospects pan out. I know it's still a relatively small sample size with Cade Horton, but I feel confident saying the Cubs found an absolute gem in Cade Horton, and his sort of top prospect billing that he had working his way through the minors, and then, of course, this year, and then getting the call-up for the Cubs, certainly looks to be an accurate one made by all the analysts who come up with those rankings.
Yeah, he's been really, really good this year. I was just running some numbers. You know, even if we break it down, I think his last 4 starts are like kind of a real designator for him in terms of just how good he's been. You know, if you pull up his full page, you're a little underwhelmed with some of the strikeout numbers that he's had at the major league level. You know, he's striking out about 20% of hitters. When in AAA, he was striking out around 1 out of every 3, 30.6%. So he was much better at striking out hitters at the AAA level, at AA. But if you look at his last 4 starts, it's about 20 innings pitched. And it's important to mention, the 4 teams he's played were Milwaukee, who's in first place, Toronto, who's in first place, Cincinnati, who has a plus 500 record. And I know not a great offensive team overall, but still, we're not talking about like the Colorado Rockies here, and the Los Angeles Angels, right? He has a 31.6 K percentage. He has a 5.3 walk percentage. He has a 2.12 FIP. So he has been absolutely crushing 3 teams in playoff contention, 2 who are basically locks to make the playoffs, and an Angels team who, listen, they're not great, but he struck out Mike Trout 3 times. He struck out Michael Trout, the best player in our generation. He struck out 3 times in the same game. I think we have to start to realize how good he is overall. Like, this is a very special pitcher that the Cubs have. I've been a big fan of him. And I think the thing that's most special is that he's been making changes on the fly. This is somebody who came up and was not confident on his changeup. You and I talked about it. That changeup he threw to Juan Soto was like a really kind of special moment when he came up in his very first game. And now this is a pitch he has a 50% whiff rate on the season. 1 out of every 2 times somebody swings at it, they don't hit it. And that's unbelievable. He has he's added pitches. He's changed his fastball shape and how he uses his fastball for a more cut against lefties and a sinker against righties. And these are all things he's doing on the fly. So, if he's this good right now, the ceiling is kind of whatever you want it to be. And there are some pieces of data in there that kind of have you pausing a little bit. His xFIP is a 4.29. It's a little bit higher than what his ERA is, which is basically nothing. It's down to 2.88 right now, and he's not giving up any runs. His left on base percentage, though, is only 77%. So when we kind of look at those things, it's not like he's getting necessarily lucky here. I do think he has a bit of a fifth beater profile. When we talk about fielding independent pitching, we're talking about things like strikeouts, walks, and home runs. The three things that a pitcher can really they're directly responsible for it. Takes defense out of it. With Cade Horton, a lot of times, or any pitcher, when you see an ERA a full run below their xFIP, you go, I don't necessarily know if this is going to keep up, but we have profiles of pitchers that we know can beat that every time. Kyle Hendricks is a great example of this. He threw 88 miles an hour. He always had an xFIP that was much higher than his ERA, but he was able to keep it down because there's usually two things we can see in almost all x-beater profiles. One, high ground ball rate. Two, low walk rate. And when we look at Cade Horton, he's got a 45.4% ground ball rate. This ranks in the 67th percentile, so he's above average when it comes to ground ball rate. He gets a lot of ground balls. Second, his walk rate. He's a 62% walk rate, in the 62% percentile for walk rate. So he throws a lot of strikes. He throws a lot of ground balls, and these are two things that you can use to beat your xFIP. So even if his xFIP is going to be sitting at 4.24, I think we have to realize that, especially with the K percentage going up, this is a guy who can anchor a rotation for the next decade. If he stays healthy, you never know how that's going to go. Knock on wood that it stays that way. But this is a guy who's very special. He has multiple plus pitches. Fastball, the four-seam cutter is an outlier pitch. The changeup looks like it's a plus pitch. The sweeper is a plus pitch. He's got everything that you could ask for from a starting pitcher. I'm blown away with how good he is. I've loved him for a while, so I've waxed poetic about Cade Horton going back since draft day. But I think he's been better so far than I expected, even on his initial run. So how good has he been? Really, really, really good. That's really good.
Very obvious answer. Just wanted, of course, us to dive into some of the numbers, things that stood out. I actually wrote an article. I don't think it's been published yet. Maybe it will be by Wednesday morning. There is kind of an interesting angle to that Rookie of the Year award, and I'm sure you're well aware of it, Jason. So if Cade Horton finishes first or second in the Rookie of the Year voting, he will be credited with a full year of service time. And the same applies for Matt Shaw, who's, by the way, currently fourth in the odds on DraftKings. And on top of that, just to pile on, because why wouldn't it? If Horton wins the award, the Cubs would not receive a draft pick through the prospect promotion incentive that was implemented in 2022 because Horton hasn't been up for a full service year. So it doesn't make sense. The Cubs would be getting kind of screwed on both ends of it, but they'd be, defined differently. You win the award, you finish second, boom, you're credited with a full year of service time. But because he technically didn't serve a full year of service time, you don't get that draft pick through the prospect promotion incentive. So I thought it was just kind of weird. But his free agency, in essence, then I believe would move up from, I think it's 2031. I could be wrong on that, but it'd be
currently up 2032.
Okay, so it'd move up from 2032 to 2031.
2031. Yep.
Yeah, and no draft pick would be awarded to Cubs because he technically didn't have
accrue a full year.
Yeah, it's weird. But I will say this. Jason, because I do think it, at least for me, it's somewhat important, regardless of how that pans out. And I certainly think Cade Horton's on a trajectory to finish first or second in the Rookie of the Year voting. I am not blaming the blueprint that the Cubs have had for Cade Horton throughout the season. I actually thought it was executed pretty flawlessly. This is just kind of like a pain in the back repercussion for some of these stupid little nuances that come with the award. So I think the Cubs have handled the blueprint and the timeline for Cade Horton very, very well this year.
No, it would have been ludicrous to start him on the major league roster in April. He had 18 innings last year in AAA, and they weren't good. They were not good AAA innings last year. I think part of that was probably because he was kind of already battling through some of his injuries. that it kind of just like racked up a little bit. The velocity was way down. But yeah, no, this isn't like the Chris Bryant situation where like it was clear that the Cubs were just like manipulating time to make sure that they got an extra year of free agency from it. The Cubs, I don't think planned on calling up Cade Horton the exact moment that they did. I think they planned on calling him up this year. I always thought he was going to be kind of ready before June 1st. Like I always believed he was going to be ready by June 1st. And, it's basically around the same time when he came up, came up in May. So he came up a little bit earlier than I kind of maybe expected him to come up, but he couldn't have come up in April. The Cubs did not do anything wrong. And same for Matt Shaw. They've done nothing wrong with Matt Shaw. In fact, I think they've hit home runs in developmental with both of those guys. If you want any reason to kind of believe in anybody that we talk about later in the minor league report, look at what they've done with Pete Crow Armstrong, look at what they've done with Matt Shaw, look at what they've done with Cade Horton. And this is a team right now who clearly can develop pitchers and hitters kind of in front of our eyes as they go about it. So these are three prospects who I don't think were fully fleshed out prospects when they first came up. They had some things to continue to work on. They did it at the major league level, at the highest level, and now look where we're at. We're talking about Matt Shaw and Cade Horton as two players who probably will receive Rookie of the Year votes. Matt Shaw is inching towards a 100 WRC plus on the season. I believe I'll just confirm this. Yeah, he's up to a 97 right now, which is above the league average at third base. So all the problems that he had beforehand is gone. And I know this is the Cade Horton talk, but I don't know if you've noticed this, but Matt Shaw has been the best hitting third baseman since the All-Star break in baseball, by a decent like margin. I think because I just wrote an article about his defense today. I'm going to write about his approach tomorrow. He has a 181 WRC plus since All-Star break. Like it's absurd. He's not 81% better than league average. Like that's not going to happen. He's not Shohei Ohtani who plays third base. But the reality is like the Cubs are really developing these players. So like I'm excited about Cade Horton. I'm excited about all of these things. They develop these players really well. And it's exciting to see them do that. Because I think a lot of fans probably weren't super high on Cade Horton when he came out of the draft. I know a lot of people were upset that the Cubs drafted a guy because he had a couple of good starts in the College World Series. But they've absolutely nailed that one. Never say never, but Brooks Lee was the guy that a lot of people wanted, and for all of our Twins fans out there, I'm not saying
just pile on a little bit,
just pile on a little bit. Brooks Lee's up to 417 plate appearances at the major league level. He's got an 88 WRC plus. You've got Cade Horton, who's not even at 100 innings right now, but he's like close to setting like rookie records on run prevention. So it's kind of got to hand it to the Cubs on this one. Brooks Lee still has a long way to go. He would not be the first prospect who had 400 plate appearances that just weren't all that good, and then he figured it out. But it happens pretty often. But yeah, I mean, I think when you look at what Cade Horton is doing, it is hard to not be like really excited about it.
I got one quick question for you that I'm glad I just thought of because it was on my mind. I drew a little bit of a parallel in the article I wrote. I need to preface though, Jason, by saying I am not saying Cade Horton is going to be this, although honestly it wouldn't shock me. I'm talking about how his confidence on the mound, kind of his swagger that he has about him, with just how much he's trusting his stuff right now. The question I want to ask you is, do you see a little Arrieta in him? Just a little Jake Arrieta with the confidence, the moxie, the swag. Like I'm watching that start against the Angels, he's just mowing dudes down. He's striking Trout out multiple times, and it's almost like he's just not surprised by any of it. And I'm trying to remember the last time I
could see a little Arrieta.
Yeah.
I'm the weird one. The guy he reminds me the most of, and it's going to be weird at first, but bear with me. John Lester. Take the stuff away from it, but like the way that he acts on the mound. I mean, John Lester was all business, baby. Like he put up on that mound, and he didn't care if he threw 92 or 93 miles an hour. He challenged hitters all day long. John Lester was not somebody who was afraid to challenge hitters. So I kind of had that bulldog mentality, and I very much feel Cade Horton kind of embodies that a lot. I mean, he's just like he gets the. Like, I was shocked when he had those two like the pitch clock violations, because man, he can't throw the ball faster. Like it feels like gets the ball, he wants to get it out of his hand immediately. So I guess like when I see him, like I get the John Lester mentality of it, which is kind of what I see. So it's a little weird because he's not a lefty, he throws a lot harder, but I think that like kind of like I'm going to pound the strike zone all day long on you. I really don't care what you're going to do about it.
Yes.
I'm going to come right at you mentality. It just reminds me a lot of John Lester.
Yeah.
So it's like if John Lester was right-handed and threw 5 miles an hour harder.
Yeah, it's in like when I was trying to find some sort of comparison, again, we're talking about like the personality that he almost has, the confidence. Yeah. I'm going to come right at you, stuff like Shota Imanaga had an incredible first season in the majors last year, but when I look at Shota, to me, it's more finesse. It's more, placement. His personality, obviously, it's like a little quirky and stuff like that. Whereas I love the Lester comparison. When I watch Cade Horton, like he's just a dog. Like he's just a dog out there on the mound, and I do like that comparison that you made. With him and
I was just kind of looking at it. John Lester threw about 58.5% of his pitches for first strikes, and when you go and you look at where Cade Horton is this year, I'm going to pull it up real quick because I was just pulling it up. So this is again why I just kind of remember about it, because I know these numbers are really close, because I've looked at them before. Oh gosh, where did it go? You'll have to bear with me. I wasn't planning on pulling this up right now. Where is his first pitch? Oh, his first pitch strike is 67.9%. So like he even throws more strikes than John Lester does. I mean, it's absurd how many first pitch strikes Cade Horton throws. Like I think the last game he threw like his first 13 pitches were all strikes. It was awesome. I love him.
Insane. Yeah, he's a fun one to watch, and only a rookie. It's incredible. Northside Baseball Podcast. Mitch Woodmeyer, Jason Ross, with you per the usual. Tuesday recording for a Wednesday publish as the Cubs get set to start a series against San Francisco. Of course, when you watch/listen to this, game one of the series will have already been played and completed. Let's pivot to a bat in the lineup, and I'll pose the question to you, Jason. Is Kyle Tucker waking up? And I'm wondering if that little brief time off last week, maybe it served as a refresher for Kyle Tucker, clear the mind. Series against the Angels, 3 homers, 7 RBI. I read an article from Patrick Mooney via The Athletic this morning, and he had mentioned some of the adjustments that Tucker was trying to make in accordance with what he was seeing on tape from his at-bats. And I pulled one little part that I want to mention. And again, this is from Patrick Mooney, an article via The Athletic. He said the motion with Tucker's legs and how he activated the lower half of his body became the focus during this recent stretch where Tucker was struggling. It had created a flatness to a swing that's designed to launch balls in the air and led to too many ground balls recently to the right side of the infield or missed pitches that wound up in foul territory. And so it sounds like Tucker was really focusing in on his legs, activating the lower half of his body. That became sort of his sole focus for what he thought was the problem. And if it was, I mean, my goodness, he certainly came alive against the Angels. And I think we all knew, like, eventually he'd get back to being Kyle Tucker. And you don't know how much the finger injury played a part. And now, no pun intended, we sort of just cross our fingers that this role that he's on continues. So I ask you, is Kyle Tucker waking up? Is he back to the Kyle Tucker that we've all become accustomed to seeing?
Yeah. So one of the things that I had noticed, just in discussion with somebody recently on Northside, they mentioned that they thought maybe it was like a swing speed issue that Tucker had, and I pulled up the data at the time, and his average bat speed was definitely down in August, but when you use StatCast, it kind of I think it looks worse than it is. Like if you pull up a StatCast and you look at his bat speed by month, I mean, it looks like it's just a direct down slope from like June to July to August, and you'd immediately go, oh my God, like that the image itself looks horrendous. But then you look at the scaling of it, and he dropped between July and August half a mile per hour. He was at 71.9. But if you look at last year, he had multiple months around that same level. So like bat speed was kind of fine. It wasn't like as much as this shot. And even when it went down to August, it was like down to 71.3. So it was like, again, it was like, I think it was like 0.4 miles per hour lower than his lowest month that he had ever tracked. So lower, but not like, it's not like he fell off a cliff like the image looks like. However, if instead you pull up his bat speed, but you went to his launch angle, there is where the actual issue was. And when I talk about the kind of the graphs on Statcast when it comes to the miles per hour, which was not great. Obviously we want to see faster swing speeds than this. It wasn't like completely egregious, but the launch angle was. So like hearing Patrick Mooney talk about his lower half, which is creating the ground balls, makes perfect sense because this launch angle up until like a couple of games ago on the month had basically cratered from about like he sits somewhere between like the 14 to like 18 degree range normally. It cratered to like 6. It's like a flat bat pass.
Wow.
It was pathetically flat. And that's just not what Kyle Tucker is. Kyle Tucker is a launch angle guy, right? That's like his thing. He pulls the ball and he uses launch, and like that's what he does. So he doesn't have like elite bat speed, but he has elite approach. He makes tons of contact, and what he does is he pulls the ball and he puts it in the air. And this is kind of what Matt Shaw has been doing a lot of, and that's why he's been hitting so well. Is if you don't have elite bat speed, you can create power by going to the shortest side of the field and putting it in the air. That's what works. And when Kyle Tucker isn't putting the ball in the air, he's hitting a lot of ground balls. That's not like him. So yeah, his bat path just completely flattened out. I never really thought it was finger related. I know a lot of people kind of thought that, but I felt if it was finger related, it would have happened in June, not 2 months later.
Yeah.
But I do think it was mental. Like it was a mental and it was a physical thing that kind of like came out of it. So like sitting him down for a couple of days, throwing him in a room, looking at some videotape, taking some time off, probably doesn't help. Probably doesn't hurt that like Owen Casey came up and had a couple of good games. You kind of looking over your shoulder a little bit. You feel a little bit more of a motivation and everything like that. But yeah, I do think he's back. When you make those mechanical changes, it clicks. And I mean, it clicked almost immediately. He's hitting home runs. He's hitting the ball harder. He looks comfortable. He looks better, like mentally and physically. He just looks like he's not upset anymore. I think he was really frustrated. And you could see he was getting frustrated. And Kyle Tucker's like, he's like an even keeled kind of dude. I've never met him, but you can watch enough on TV and be like, you get that feeling like he's a chill guy. But he was getting upset. And I think that plays into it. The one mechanical issue begets another when mentally you're not there. So yeah, I do think he's back. I do think he's waking up. I do think this is the guy that we're expected to see. And I think it's a good reminder that the long-term vision of what these players are is more important than the short term when we try to figure out what's going to happen next. We kind of get in these ruts where it's like, well, it's never going to get fixed. We got to bench this guy. He's got to sit for a week. We got to play Owen Casey. But I think the real answer to a lot of these things is maybe a day or two off, a mental reset, and then things will be fine. These guys are every bad game they have is almost like one day closer to them being fixed.
Yeah,
this is going to get fixed one day. It's not going to be broken forever. Kyle Tucker wasn't going to be broken. I know Seiya Suzuki's kind of in a little bit of a prolonged slump right now. Every day it's more likely that he's going to get back to it. We saw Pete Crow Armstrong start to turn the corner recently. Michael Busch has turned the corner recently. So I think as a team they're turning the corner. So and Kyle Tucker is just another example of that. Like I know things are bad sometimes, but they'll be okay eventually.
Let me ask you this on Kyle Tucker, and then we'll keep it trucking along, Jason. I'm always curious for your thoughts on this stuff. Are you of the mindset, and I'll say I am of this mindset, which is why I kind of just want to get your opinion on it. I was during this slump for a lot of these bats in the lineup. I always went back to Kyle Tucker, and I had the belief that, man, if Kyle Tucker is slumping going into the postseason and struggles in the postseason, like the Cubs have no shot. And I look at other bats in that lineup and I'm like, man, if they're really struggling going into the playoffs, I think the Cubs could overcome it. But when I looked at Kyle Tucker, I was like, that's not one of those guys. Like if he is struggling, he's slumping into the postseason and in the playoffs, the Cubs don't have a realistic shot. Do you believe that too, or no? I think there are some bats that if they're really struggling, but like Kyle Tucker's going and a couple other guys are going, they can overcome that. To me, he's the key cog in that lineup for the Cubs. Like he has to be on for the Cubs to really make a run.
I think on short sample sizes when it comes to like playoffs, it's weird. Like weird things happen. And that's like I struggle to say if there wasn't one player doing it that it couldn't happen, because we've seen super weird things happen in the playoffs in like a 3 or 5 game set. It's like, I remember the playoff series where like, and it happened against the Cubs, where like Daniel Murphy was like he was a good player, and then he just turned into like a demigod for like literally weeks, and then he turned it into the rest of the next couple of seasons. He just turned into one of the best hitters in baseball. But like these weird things happen sometimes, and like we always look back on these like weird postseason heroes who had these things. So I think the Cubs, I think any team can overcome any individual player not doing it, but it makes it harder because when Kyle Tucker isn't being Kyle Tucker and isn't being a 140 WRC plus hitter in the middle of your order, then what you have is you're basically asking somebody who isn't that normally to have that kind of a series, right?
Yeah.
So I think they can overcome it, but when you have your best players who you're counting on who aren't there, then you have to have like Dansby Swanson go off for 3 days, or you need like
Ian Happ.
Ian Happ, or you need the bullpen to just like literally not give up any runs, or like somebody else has to kind of fill that void. And I think it's always more likely that your best players fill the like postseason hero void in like a 3 game set than it is for like, like Carson Kelly to do that. And it's not to say that Carson Kelly couldn't, because we saw early this season, like Carson Kelly can get really hot. He can carry your team for a week. Any player is capable of that. It's just far more unlikely that Carson Kelly, or I'm a big Matt Shaw guy, that Matt Shaw as a rookie is going to do that. That Michael Busch is going to do that, especially if you have a heavy lefty lineup on pitching, like coming at you. So, I think they could survive Kyle Tucker, but I don't think that they win a World Series if Kyle Tucker has just a bad playoffs like across the board. So once we add the sample size larger and larger, then it becomes less and less likely that you can survive those things. Like, do I think they could beat the Padres without Kyle Tucker having a good 3 games? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's much harder to do that without Kyle Tucker having a good series, but it's possible. But over the playoffs, no, he can't. He can't be the guy that we saw in July and August. And even in July, he was a 107 WRC plus guy, but it was due mostly to walking. He had a really great approach then. But, if that's what he's going to do, the Cubs are probably going to struggle a bit more. And you probably need Seiya Suzuki to go nuclear, or somebody else to really cover the load.
Yeah, well put. I agree with that. Northside Baseball Podcast, Mitch Widmeyer, Jason Ross with you. The Cubs, we mentioned a couple weeks ago, I had brought up, there's this huge 5 game set against the Brewers. And then after that, I was like, Jason, right now as things stand, and this was 2 weeks ago, I said, after that Brewers series, there's 24 consecutive games against sub 500 teams. And that has stood the test of time. All those teams are still under 500. The Cubs are now in the midst of that stretch. So you sweep the Angels, who are sub 500. Now you have 21 more in a row against teams below 500. Starts tonight against the Giants, or I should say, last night, based off when we're recording this. And they actually just helped the Cubs, taking 2 of 3 from the Brewers, which was nice to see. So no cakewalk against San Francisco. But again, that's a team that's a disappointing season for them. They made the big splash trade to get Rafael Devers from Boston. And I'm not putting it all on Devers. I'm just saying that was the big move for them. And it all hasn't come together for San Francisco as a team, likely going to be on the outside looking in once the postseason rolls around. And then after that, for the Cubs, it's Rockies, Braves, Nationals, Braves, Rays, Pirates. And, those 2 series against Atlanta, for a lot of us, and myself included, I remember circling those back in April, Jason, and saying, man, Atlanta and Chicago, that's 6 big games near the tail end of the schedule that could decide some playoff seeding and maybe some division races, or help decide it for both those teams. And now it's really only going to affect the postseason race for the Cubs, because Atlanta's been pretty dang bad this year. What do you make of this schedule? Yeah, this schedule, and these, again, next 21 sub 500 teams, you got to capitalize.
It's even more than the next 21. I looked at it. The only 2 teams with winning records left on the entire schedule are the Reds and the Mets. They play them both at home. That's it. They play 1 series on the road at Cincinnati. They play 1 series at home against the Mets. Every other team they play the rest of the season is under 500 right now.
It's crazy.
it's crazy. So they really have a pretty easy schedule left. I looked at the numbers. They're 45-21 against sub 500 teams, right? So just to do some quick math on that, because I'm curious as to what like we can kind of expect. So their winning percentage in those games is a 68%. So they win 2 out of every 3 against these types of teams, right? And if they've got 27 games left and they're gonna play those kinds of wins, I mean that could be 18 wins, right? Yeah. That could be 18 wins the rest of the way that the Cubs could rack up, and they're sitting at 76 right now. That would put them at like 94 wins at the end of the season, and I don't know where that sets you in terms of like playoff seeding. We've talked playoff picture a little bit later with it, but yeah, I expect that they're going to keep it rolling most of the time. I don't think we can expect them to sweep any series. Like even the series against the Rockies, winning 3 games in a row in baseball is really hard. It's really hard. Like it just doesn't happen very often. So they're going to lose. They're going to lose some games, and they're probably going to drop a series in there. There's the series. They're going to drop a series that we don't want them to drop. Maybe it's a series against the Braves. Maybe it's the upcoming series against the Giants. Like they're going to drop a couple series in here because it's just impossible to always win 2 out of 3, regardless of what happens. But if they can win 2 out of every 3 against these bad teams on average the rest of the year, they're going to finish 92 to 96 wins on the year. They're going to be set up really well. They're going to make the playoffs. And so yeah, I do believe they're going to keep it rolling outside of like drastic injury, horrible outcomes. But yeah, I do think they should. I don't know how you feel about that, but yeah, I think they should, for the most part, be fine against this weak underbelly of the schedule.
100% agree with you. I want to get into different angles of it when we talk about the playoff picture too, because I think they kind of tie together. I don't want to spoil. I know entering Tuesday, Cubs are 5.5 back of the Brewers. I don't necessarily think the division race is over. And maybe that's me just wearing Cubs goggles. It could be. I don't know. But yeah, we'll get to that when we talk about the playoff picture. Yeah, this is certainly a time to capitalize. Like you said, if you can take 2 out of every 3 against these sub 500 teams, you're putting yourself in a really, really, really good spot, especially when you look ahead to some of the series that Milwaukee has left, which again, we'll talk about that in the playoff picture. Weekly segment. One of my favorite, even though I don't contribute to it, it just fills me up with information. The minor league report, Jason, and I'm assuming these are going to start winding down a little bit too as the season winds down, right? But it's all
we only have a couple more weeks left of full reports. So we'll have to take a pause soon on these, but we still have a couple cool pieces of information to relay for you. We'll start with Iowa just because it's always the easiest place to start. Big Mo Baller, Moises Ballesteros hasn't been hitting well over the last couple of weeks. 86 WRC plus, striking out a little bit more than average. Hitters go up, hitters go down. Did have a big game yesterday, hit a home run, picked up 2 hits. So where we're at, I'm not quite certain. I think either he or Kevin Alcantara will probably be up on the major league roster in under a week. September 1st is coming. And with the September 1st kind of roster expansion, we're not talking like call up everybody like they used to. You get 2 more players that they get to call up. I expect 1 hitter, 1 pitcher, usually the way it goes. Pitching wise, I don't know if the Cubs are really going to call up a prospect there, and talk about that a little bit later with a couple of the names that we'll bring up. But they're going to bring up a hitter, and I suspect it'll be Kevin Alcantara because he plays center field and he gives the Cubs an option at that position, more so than Ballesteros, but we'll see. But Moises Ballesteros could have a good run here. Talking about Kevin Alcantara, he's been on fire lately. Had a 168 WRC plus over the last 2 weeks. Strikeout rate down to 22.5%. One big positive is over his last 57 plate appearances, whiff rate is dropping. This is a big thing for him. His strikeout rate's kind of hovered around the 30% this year. If he can keep that on the decline the rest of the season, be really excited about that. Feel a little bit better about him heading into next year. He will probably get one more option year, so they don't have to put him on the Major League roster next year. But with Ballesteros, Alcantara, Owen Casey's on the roster right now, and guy I'll talk about here in a second, Jonathan Long, they're getting to a point of diminishing returns of being in AAA, and they're either going to have to find places for these guys at the Major League level or make some decisions over the offseason with them. Jonathan Long also hitting really well, another 130 WRC plus. The batted ball data there is just great still on the season. Everything looks awesome. He's walking 2 times more than he struck out over the last couple of weeks, hit a couple home runs. I like Jonathan Long a lot. I think the Cubs probably are going to struggle to find a home for him. I will see where it happens with it, but I like his batted ball profile. If I'm a major league team, I'm interested in making a trade with the Chicago Cubs, and I have any space open at a first base, he's going to be somebody that I'm definitely going to be calling on. Iowa hitters are looking really, really good. We did get a little bit of bad news on Iowa pitchers. Brandon Birdsell is going to be out the rest of the season. He had been coming back from an injury. We saw his velocity down recently. They just called him out the rest of the year. Bummer. I thought he was going to be somebody who was going to get major league starts this year. With the injuries that the Cubs had, he probably would have, and he didn't. I don't think he's dead as a prospect, but bummer year for him. One pitcher that I've talked about in the past that I think could be somebody who we see over the next little bit is Riley Martin. Riley Martin over over the month has been really, really good. He hit a weird little hiccup in like mid-June to like early July where his walk rate kind of dumped on him again. But over the last month, he's been phenomenal. He's been striking out basically everybody, 36% strikeout rate, only walking 8%. He's got a 2.13 ERA. He's got a 1.63 FIP. He's an older prospect. He's 27. He is left-handed. I do think he's probably going to be more useful against lefties than righties, but Riley Martin's very Caleb Thielbar-y to me. Kind of gives me a lot of those vibes. He's got this like big breaking ball, and like way over the top kind of stuff. I think we could maybe see him as a pitcher for a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if he makes it. He's not on the 40 right now, so maybe he doesn't. But he's one of my favorite stories. I know I've mentioned him before, but Cubs basically signed him for like $5,000 coming out of the draft right before they changed the rules. He's one of the guys I'm sure they changed the rule for. You have to offer so much of slot to sign these guys, and the Cubs basically they signed this at a small liberal arts school. He's a pharmaceutical major, at a small school in Chicago, and they signed him in the draft, mid-round draft pick, and he's been a lot of fun. I counted him out right away as one of my favorite stories. I hope he makes the major leagues. He's from the area, so I think playing. He was at Quincy, that's where he was from. So if he gets to play with the Cubs, I think awesome. Moving a little bit past Iowa, we'll talk a couple more pitchers here. Jackson Wiggins is back. He did make his first start in like a month and a half on I think it was Saturday. It didn't go great. He's clearly rusty. He struck out 2, walked 2, but the velocity was good. I think we're just going to have to build him back. I know there's been some discussion. Maybe he comes up with the bullpen. Don't think so. Probably lost too much time, but
it'd be fun though.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Hell yeah, it would be. He'd be throwing 103 out of the 102 out of the bullpen. It'd be great. But I just don't think that's going to happen. Arian Rodriguez is a name that I kind of tabbed as somebody to get excited about at the beginning of the year. He had a few signs that he was maybe a breakout candidate, and he's been really, really good lately. He's 23. His velocity is pretty good, but it's not like amazing down at South Bend. But he's got a 2.81 ERA, 24.8 strikeout percent, 9.1 walk rate, 3.91 FIP. So he gets a lot of ground balls. He's got like a mature build. So it's not somebody that you really have to like worry about like. He's like, oh, he's like super lanky or anything like that. He's kind of a put together guy. I don't think he's going to be a star, but like, I think this back end major league rotation upside with Arian, keep an eye out on him. I think he's a lot of fun. Going down to Tennessee as well. We'll stick on the Tennessee train after Jackson Wiggins. We've got two hitters who were recently promoted, Carter Trice and Jefferson Rojas. Rojas is one of the Cubs' best young prospects. Still not hitting down in Tennessee. It's been a pretty rough go for him over the month in Tennessee. I think that's okay. I'm not necessarily worried about it. Strikeout rate's a little bit high over his last 2 weeks, 39 WRC plus. So like he's really in it right now. I think that's okay. I think these kids, they're struggling. They're at a brand new level. They're coming up at the end of the season. Jefferson Rojas is 21 years old. He's a young kid, so he's very much a baby for where he's at. Carter Trice, a little bit older. He was just called up. Hasn't been going well there for his first 11 games, but he did hit a home run last night. So hopefully that gets him going. I think he's an interesting platoon outfield type down the road. I don't think he's ever going to be a star, but backup outfielder, maybe like a strong side platoon guy. He does hit left-handed. He could be interesting there. We have a couple of recent draft players that I want to talk about. Kane Kepley. If you've not been following Kane Kepley, mark this name down. This is going to be one of your favorite players to follow over the course of the next little bit. I just wrote an article on him. It should go live tomorrow on 3 drafted players to keep an eye out. But Kane Kepley is like the guy right now. Ethan Conrad, first-round draft pick, still rehabbing his shoulder, not going to play this year. Kane Kepley was our second-round draft pick. Small little outfielder from UNC. Plays center field. He's like 5'8", tiny guy. Came out of college. The big talk was plus to plus glove. So we're talking maybe on the 20-80 scale, maybe in that 70 range on glove. That's being aggressive with it, but that puts you at like very, very good. Pete Crow Armstrong's like an 80 grade. That's like generationally elite. 70 grade is kind of like right below that. It's like, this guy wins Gold Gloves. That's the kind of glove he has in center field. He's also got plus speed. He steals a lot of bags. He's got great approach. He's got great contact, but he's 5'8" and he doesn't hit for a lot of power. However, so far he's been going bananas in Myrtle Beach. He has a 223 WRC plus. He's walking more than he strikes out. He hit a home run the other night, so he's got a home run on the board. He's stolen 11 bases in 17 games. His on-base percentage is like over 500. He's been bananas. Now, I don't want to make this comparison too big, but so keep it together a little bit when I make this comparison. But the Cubs drafted a first-round player last year who came out of the ACC, Florida State, same conference that UNC plays in, Cam Smith. Cam Smith started in Myrtle Beach as well. Cam Smith had a 225 WRC plus in Myrtle Beach. Kane Kepley has a 223. That's how good he's been at Myrtle Beach. He's been so good that Cam Smith basically skipped all of minor leagues and has been playing Major League Baseball all season. Now, it hasn't gone particularly well for him. If you haven't paid attention to Cam Smith lately, he's really taken he's gone downhill since he hit that kind of home run against the Cubs, a couple of home runs. He's struggling, which is fine. I don't think he should be in the major league right now. I don't think Caden Kepley should start the next year of the major leagues either. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Like, there's a reason he wasn't considered a top 60 pick in the draft. With that said, he's got a very safe floor with the glove and the speed. This is somebody who I would say coin flip wise, he probably makes a major league at bat at one point in his life, which you can't really do with guys who have played 20 games in Myrtle Beach very often. Like, I would say it's coin flip. He's got a pretty safe floor. Ceiling wise, like if you want to talk ceiling, like you want to talk like pie in the sky, like best case scenario, it's like Steven Kwan, but he steals more bases than he plays center field. Like that's your pie in the sky. But we have to remember that's like 99th percentile. There's so many options that come in below this. So like, don't hear me say he's gonna be Steven Kwan. I'm saying like he's got to show more power. He hit 3 home runs at North Carolina this year with metal bats. So like the power is a work in progress here. If he hits 5 home runs at the major league level, he probably is a starting caliber outfielder because he's so good on the bases and he's so good with the glove. He's going to be there, and he is a guy that you will just love. He is annoying as hell, is the best way I can put it. Like, he is annoying as hell if you are dealing with him. He steals bases, he gets under your skin, he makes contact, and he just will not strike out. If you get a chance to watch a Myrtle Beach Pelicans game between today and when their season ends, or when he gets promoted, I think he's going up to South Bend probably for a cup of coffee before the end of the year. But if you get a chance to watch this kid, please do. He's one of the most fun kids in the entire system. I kind of shit on him a little bit, when he first got drafted. So you have to excuse me there. But yeah, that's what I did. I didn't love the draft pick right away, and I was not very. I think my initial reaction was I didn't really understand it. But I think those are my favorite prospects. Those are the guys who end up becoming my favorite prospects, are the guys that I kind of dump on a little bit when they first get drafted. I come back the other way and I'm like, oh man, I totally missed this guy. So I think I unfairly sold him on draft day. I really like him. I was wrong. He's so much fun. Another guy from the draft that we'll talk about is Josiah Hartshorn. He is down at Arizona right now. Arizona Phil is our best kind of information, what happens there. If you're not too familiar with the complex league, basically it's a lot of closed doors, behind the scenes type of stuff. They don't stream their games anywhere. If you get the MILB package, like I have, I can't watch any of the games. They stream a couple games on YouTube every once in a while, but it's pretty hard to see. If they're doing any practice on the backfield, it's like you're not getting any information. Phil goes to all these things. He watches it all. We get updates. Hartshorn is, when he came out of into the draft, it looked like corner, outfield, first base is probably going to be his home. He's a switch hitter. He makes a lot of contact and he has a lot of power. But he's probably going to be corner, outfield. And a lot of people thought maybe first base. He's been playing center field for him, and Phil reports he looks pretty good out there right now. I don't think he's going to play center field. He's 6'2", like 210 pounds already. He's a rock. He's not going to be a center fielder, I think, down the road. But one of the players that I remember getting the same kind of like, is he a center fielder? Maybe athleticism wise talk on like right after draft day was Owen Casey. There was some belief that he could be like a moonlight center field guy. Clearly he's not a center fielder. But when we see these guys who people kind of immediately go, oh, they're big, they play first base, but they're capable of, like, at age 19, like where you can squint and see maybe center fielder, that says they have enough athleticism to play corner, to me. So like guy who's like over there, he's like making enough, he's making enough athletic strides that he's like tracking down balls in center field. He's probably long-term corner, not like long-term first base concern at this point. But Phil says he's basically been impossible to strike out down in the complex league so far. This is a guy who was basically impossible to strike out at high school. He's a switch hitter. He's a switch pitcher. So the Cubs aren't going to pitch him, but he's one of my favorite prospects. So we probably won't see him anywhere real this year, but like keep an eye out on that name next year. And then we'll finish it off with my favorite number of the entire minor league system right now, which is Ty Southazine. If Kane Kepley has been going absolutely banana town at Myrtle Beach, Ty Southazine doing the same thing. I would hate to be an opposing pitcher right now and seeing at the top of their order Kepley and Southazine, because since August has turned over, Southazine has a 480 on base percentage. 480. The guy, it's unbelievable. He's walking like 7% more than he strikes out. He hits everything. Now he has 0 home runs. Guy still can't hit a home run. Get him some weights. Like he just needs to hit 5. He needs to hit 5 home runs. If he can hit 5 home runs, that he's a middle infielder. It's a Stephen Kwan type. Like I'm just gonna hit a lot of balls type of a guy. But he walks a pretty good route amount too. So Southazine and Kepley are like these 2 annoyances at the top of the Myrtle Beach lineup. And Myrtle Beach offense has just been crazy lately. I saw. I think somebody compared them to the 27 Yankees on North Side recently, and it's basically what they've been. If the 27 Yankees didn't hit any home runs, if Murderers Row was I'm going to walk and single you to death, that's what Myrtle Beach has basically become with those guys at the top of the lineup. But they're so much fun. Tune into a Myrtle Beach game in the next like 3 or 4 days if you can. If they're the free game on MILB, if you have the MLB.TV package, like you get all these games for free, sign on, watch one game and watch these 2 at the top of the lineup before they get called up to South Bend, because they're fun. They're so much fun. So we'll see what ends up happening, but it is a fun little lineup right now in Myrtle Beach.
You had me Googling and looking up Kane Kepley as soon as you
awesome.
dude. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna
I feel
be one to watch.
I feel so bad for not loving him on draft day. Like I look back on it, I was wrong. Like I was totally wrong. Draft day, they drafted him. My first thought was, what? Why? Why?
Yeah.
But the more like I look into him, that was my initial reaction. A lot of times my initial takes aren't great. I know that my brain pops up one thing, and then I go and I do some research, and I realize actually I really like the guy. So I gotta stop doing that a little bit. But
hey, at least
like
you can admit it.
Oh, I admit it. Like I know when I'm wrong, and I know when I'm wrong right away. I was wrong on. I think it was like the next day. I had to sit there and I was like, dude, what are you talking about? You love Cade, like you're gonna love Cade Kepley. You know you're gonna love Cade Kepley. Like he's annoying. Like he really is. Watch a game and you'll really get the understanding. Because I watched a few of his games. He's really annoying, man. He's a mosquito. Like that's what he reminds me of. Like he is there all the time. Like every time you look around, you're like, how's he on first base again? He's just on first base, and then he's on second base, or he's fouling off 7 pitches in a row. He's so much fun. I think guys you're really gonna enjoy him. I think the special with him is going to be making sure he pulls the ball. If he can pull the ball and get the ball in the air a little bit, he can hit 5 home runs. Like he can hit 5 home runs. If he hits 5 home runs, this guy's gonna start at the major league level. Like that's how much I think everything else works. But if he doesn't hit 5 home runs, I don't know.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is when you were talking about him, and then I was Googling and looking stuff up. It like I just thought, Jason, the Brewers have like an unlimited number of guys who don't hit for a lot of power, but they're annoying. Like you said, they're just pesky, and they seem to deliver against the Cubs. Like Sal Frelick, Bryce Terang, these pesky guys that they don't hit for a lot of power. It's not in their profile, but they seem to come up with they seem to come up at opportune times and deliver more times than not. And it seems like it happens against the Cubs. So if the Cubs can have one of those guys, it's not like, I'm not talking about like a Kyle Tucker or a Pete Armstrong, big bats, they deliver. Like one of these pesky guys who can maybe be a thorn in the side for Milwaukee. Like if we can, reverse that on the Brewers a little bit, I'm all for it. And if Cade Kepley can be that guy, I'm for it.
And this is the reason why I knew I was wrong about Cade Kepley, because my favorite player in the 2021 draft was Sal Frelick. I love Sal Frelick, big Sal Frelick fan. Loved him coming out of college. Loved the bat. Thought the power was like real for his size. He's been great this year with Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But like, if I love Sal Frelick, why did I not like Cade Kepley in the second round? Like that's why when I had to like take a step back, I'd be like, listen, man, like, why are you dumping on this kid right now? Like he's a lot like Sal Frelick, and just like literally 4 years ago, you were bummed when the Brewers took him right before the Cubs picked, because that was the year the Cubs picked Jordan Wicks, and I still think Jordan Wicks can make it as a major league player, but I really, really, really liked Sal Frelick. And when he went 15th, I was bummed because I was kind of hoping he would slide to 21. So yeah, no, I was super wrong on draft day on Cade Kepley. He's really cool. I think it's so much fun, and I sincerely hope he makes it to the major leagues. I think a lot of people are going to fall in love with some Cade Kepley if it happens.
Heck yeah. Let's finish up talking about the playoff picture I mentioned earlier. Cubs enter Tuesday, 5.5 back in Milwaukee. It's a hefty task, and I mentioned, I obviously hold some bias as a Cubs fan, and maybe I'm wearing the goggles. I just don't think the division race is over when you look at the schedules, and the Cubs have the tiebreaker, right? If the two teams finish in a tie, the Cubs would get the nod in the division, and the Cubs have the Giants and then the Rockies coming up. Meanwhile, the Brewers are in a series right now with Arizona. Then they have Toronto and Philadelphia back-to-back, and I know Zach Wheeler's out for the year for the Phillies, and that'll factor in come postseason time, but that's still a pretty damn good rotation that the Phillies have. Obviously, it takes a hit without Wheels, and it's a pretty home run dependent lineup that the Phillies have. But while the Cubs are playing the Rockies and then whoever's after that, the Braves, Milwaukee's going to be playing Toronto and Philadelphia, and they have some other difficult series after that in September. As in terms of the wild card, the Cubs are 2.5 up on San Diego for the top wild card spot. You mentioned earlier, like the Cubs are going to make the playoffs, and I just out of curiosity, when I was doing some research last night and this morning, per Fangraphs, Jason, the Cubs have a 99.7% chance to make the postseason, just a 13% chance to win the division, but that was at below 5% just a week ago. and the Cubs have a 5% chance to win the World Series. Now, that's, really stretching it out, covering all the bases, no pun intended. Interestingly enough, Jason, maybe you won't find this interesting, maybe you'll agree with it. I did find it slightly intriguing that, again, per Fangraphs, the Mets and Padres have better odds to win the World Series than the Cubs. The Padres part maybe doesn't surprise me as much, but the Mets kind of did. The Mets have a higher percentage chance, according to Fangraphs, to win the World Series right now than Chicago. And that's a team that, I know they beat the Phillies on Monday night, but they've been sputtering and trying to figure things out. And some of their bullpen acquisitions at the deadline, like Helsley from St. Louis, haven't really come to fruition yet. But that's where things stand with the Cubs. And I might have to put on, the red clown nose at the end of September, and I'll be made a fool. I'm fine with that, but I truly do not believe the division race is over. I just don't.
I don't think it's over either. It's unlikely, and that's what I have to keep reminding myself. It's unlikely, but I mean, it takes literally one series, right? The Brewers get swept, the Cubs sweep somebody. It's 2.5 games. That's literally all it needs. It needs one of those. Like, you need. And I think it was over the last 10, just like looking over the last 10, the Brewers are 4-6 and the Cubs are 8-2.
Yeah.
So like the Cubs can close up. It's possible. It takes one more week like that, and the Cubs, it's 3.5, right?
Yeah.
One more 10-game stretch, Cubs are 3.5. And then, we're talking about like another like 15, 20 to go. So like, I think we're going to be okay. I think it's going to be close. I don't think either team's going to run away with it at any point. But yeah, I don't think it's over. I don't think that they're going to win it. Like if you said put money on the Brewers or the Cubs, like you take the Brewers right now, they're 5.5 games up. But it's not over. It really isn't. The Brewers were 5.5 games back, and it took them like a month, and then they were like 4 games up. It just like weird things happen. And the Brewers are kind of owed some bad luck. Like they really are. They're owed some bad luck. When everything was going so well for them, a lot of those games they shouldn't have won. And they shouldn't have won because when you're down 8-1 or 7-1 in like the third inning against the Reds, who are not a terrible team and are a pretty good pitching team, you should win that game. And they did. Or they would be down by 2 against the Mets, and Edwin Diaz would give up his first home run in like a year and a half, like to lose the game. Like those things shouldn't happen, but it happened for like a month and a half. It just felt like all these things happen. You turn on the game, you'd say, Brewers are down by 3. All of a sudden, they're up by 4, and it would just happen. Whereas
if the Cubs were down 1, it was over for a while.
It was over, and it does feel a little bit like maybe they're reversing a little bit. I looked at the game the other night when they're playing against the Giants. They're up 3-2. All of a sudden, I look. McGill blows the game. They lose 4-3. Last night, they ended up holding on, but they were trying to actively blow a lead. As it happened again, where Arizona made it close at the end of the game. It was like 6-1, and then it was 6-5. So like we're starting to maybe see a little bit of a swing. Maybe that bad luck coming around. And I think if that bad luck hits and the Cubs kind of keep getting guys to wake back up, I think you can make it interesting. I'll say right now that I think that they will go into the last series of the season with it not wrapped up either way.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll say that right now.
Again,
I think
we're both saying too it's unlikely the Cubs win the division. We just don't think it's over. Is it fair to put it this way, Jason? Like when you were just talking, I was thinking like, how can I better word this? And to me, it is far, far more likely that the Brewers win this division by 2 games than 9 or 10 games.
Yes.
That's where my thought process is. That's why I'm saying I don't think the division race is over.
Yeah. I'll like I said, I have a feeling that when the Cubs go to play their last series this year and the Brewers go play their last series, I looked at it. I can't remember who the Cubs have in the I looked at it and then I forgot. It was the Cardinals. The Cubs play a home series against the Cardinals. I think when the Cubs go in to that Friday game against the Cardinals at the end of September, the division will not be wrapped up either way. Now it might get wrapped up that Friday. Yeah, it might get wrapped up that day, and the Brewers might win by 3 games on that day. But I will say that going to that last series, the division will still be up for grabs. Doesn't necessarily mean that I think the Cubs are going to win it. Doesn't necessarily think mean that I don't think that the Brewers won't win it by 5 games in the end, because all you really need is a loss, and then the Cubs kind of give up and rest players. But I have a feeling that it's going to go to that last series, and it's going to be close enough to where like that Friday it's not done. And so we'll see what ends up happening. But for that to happen, really all you need to do is have the Cubs win 2 more games than the Brewers between now and then.
Yeah, I was just looking at schedules. I was matching stuff up. When we record, assuming we record again just next Tuesday like we normally do, Jason, it should be fairly interesting for us, because this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, when Milwaukee is in Toronto, the Cubs will be playing a 3-game series simultaneously against the Rockies. And so you had just mentioned, like, man, if there is a stretch, like right now, Cubs 8-2 last 10, Brewers, I think you said 4-6. I think that's what you said. And then you had mentioned, like, it takes one series for the Brewers to get swept, the Cubs to sweep the opponent. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, the Cubs are 2.5 back, or maybe it's 3.5 back then. And then things start to tighten up. And if there's a spot on the schedule where I look at that, it's the Brewers going to Toronto this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, when the Cubs face the Rockies, where I'm like, do I think Toronto's going to sweep the Brewers? No, the Brewers are really good. But could I see Toronto taking 2 out of 3 when they have Shane Bieber, Jose Barrios, and Kevin Gossman scheduled to go that series? Could they take 2 or 3 from Milwaukee while the Cubs sweep the Rockies? Yes, that's absolutely in play. And that's where things start to get more condensed, and there's more pressure on the Brewers. And then when the Cubs turn the page to next Monday, and we hopefully record Tuesday, the Cubs are playing a series against the Braves, who are a sinking ship. Meanwhile, after going to Toronto, the Brewers head back home, but they play the Phillies for 3. And so I think that stretch from this upcoming Friday through next Thursday, where the Brewers have 6 straight against the Blue Jays and Phillies, while the Cubs get the Rockies and Braves, pivotal if the Cubs want to try to climb back into it.
Oh, absolutely. I think that there's a real opportunity here in the next couple of weeks. You can make it close. It's a real situation. The Cubs, once they get out of this West Coast trip, they play 9 out of the next 12 at home.
Yep.
Right. They play 9 out of the next 12 at home, and so I think there's a decent chance here that this thing kind of tightens up. I don't know how tight it's going to get, but I do think it's going to tighten up. I think it's going to be a fun finish to the season. And I guess I kind of hope that we reverse 2018, the Brewers here, where even if the Brewers have a good September, we just have such a good September that they can't. That they can't. So if we could give them a little bit of payback for 2018, I would love it. But we'll see. I think if the Cubs can just get a home series, even if it's in the wild card round, even if they can't win the division, if they are the host against Los Angeles or the Padres, I think they're in a much better place than if they're going on the road. So like that's my goal. Like even if Wrigley's playing like a massive pitcher's park, that means that everybody's dealing with it. And I would much rather have everybody dealing with it than the opposite. So please come here. We'll play you in Wrigley. I think if we get it at Wrigley, we should feel a little bit better. That's kind of my goal. It's just host a series. But if you can get the division, get the division.
Yep. Well said. Cubs have 3 against San Francisco, 3 against Colorado, and then they head back home next week where they will have 6 in a row at home against the Braves and the Nationals. It'll be fascinating to see where the Cubs are at when we chat again next Tuesday. This has been the Northside Baseball Podcast. He is Jason Ross. I am Mitch Widmeyer. We'll see you next time.